Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X research and professional physicist. And today I'd like to bring to you another one of my articles. This one's entitled, "The Sun is No Longer Shining, Irrefutable Evidence." Now, I have presented a lot of evidence that the sun is no longer shining. But is it possible that the sun is still shining, still illuminating the atmosphere, but simply much weaker? Well, first of all, if the sun is still shining, then since we can see the moon in the sky during the day, we should also be able to see the sun no matter how weak it is. Even if the sun we see is a hologram, it would be expected to have a similar brightness to what the real moon had many years ago in the sky. The sun, due to its size and distance from Earth, would appear to be about the same size as the moon. Since the moon is visible during daylight, even though it only reflects light, the sun should still be visible even if much weakened. So, no matter how weak the sun is, if it is still emitting light, it should be visible as a perfect sphere in the sky. The sun would be a perfect sphere the same size as the moon because it is 100 times larger than the Earth and 150 million kilometers from Earth. The distance alone does away with any divergence from a perfect circular outline. But if the sun is still a source, although a weak source in the sky, where are the photographs showing this perfect circular light source in the sky? And here we see a bright light source in the sky, but it's clearly not the sun because it's hexagonal in shape and there are blue light beams running through it. It also appears to be below cloud altitude, and obviously the real sun, since it's so far away, would have to be above the clouds. So clearly this is a sun simulator. If the sun is still shining and illuminating the Earth's atmosphere, then the result of that illumination should still be apparent. So here in this photograph, if the sun is still illuminating the atmosphere, why is the sky darker around where the real sun should be in this image? And you can see how dark it is. It's dark gray around here. The real atmosphere in the gap behind these clouds. It's very, very dark, much darker than here. It's still dark there, but there's some blue there. Here it looks dark gray. It's extremely dark down here. So the real sun, even if weak, should still help the sun simulators illuminate the atmosphere so that it should be brighter around the real sun's position, not darker. And even if this is a sun simulator, this should be where the real sun's position is. And the real sun should then be illuminating the atmosphere from outside the atmosphere. And that should result in this part of the atmosphere being brighter than over here. But we don't see that at all. It's obvious that the visible light source in this photograph is a sun simulator within the atmosphere and below cloud altitude because cloud is reflecting its light, but no bright light can be seen in the gap between the clouds. So this has to be reflected light. This is not a light source outside of the atmosphere illuminating this and causing this brightness here. This cannot be transferred light because then this gap here would be extremely bright. So this has to be reflected light. And this has to be a sun simulator, which is the light source. And this cloud is then reflecting the light that this bright light source is emitting. So there does not appear to be any light source outside of the atmosphere illuminating the sky in this case. However, some people would still argue that the weak illumination we see in the gap is enough evidence to suggest that the real sun is still shining, but just very weak, and we do not see it because it is behind the sun simulator. In other words, the sun simulator is perfectly aligned with the real sun so that we do not see it. However, on July 20th, 2018 in Russia, there was a perfect opportunity for the real sun to be visible because in the middle of the day, the sun simulators turned off. This was summer and the region is above the Arctic Circle, the real sun should have been visible for almost 24 hours each day. But no one was able to take a photograph of the perfect weak circle of light in the sky, which would prove that the real sun was still emitting light. And no proof has emerged, and this is what the sky looked like at that event on July 20th, 2018. And then there was this other one in Argentina, August 12, 2011, and here day suddenly turns to night. And a dark cloud does not suddenly turn middle of the day light into middle of the night darkness, and neither does an eclipse. All natural explanations would require gradual change from light to darkness. Only artificial lighting can suddenly turn off. So on August 12, 2011, the sun simulators and sky simulation system over Argentina failed. This occurred in the middle of the day when the sun is supposed to be at its brightest. The day suddenly turned to pitch black darkness. How is that possible? Day turns to night as if the day had been switched off. Well, we know about the simulators being artificial devices and the sky simulation system being an artificial system. So if the power to them is cut off, it should be the same as switching off the lights in a room. They go off. However, if the real sun is still shining, even though very weak, why did the day turn completely dark, as if there was no sun there at all? The simulators turned off and there was no real sun behind them. And here's a screenshot from a video, a YouTube video by Jameen Jammer Craig from October 17, 2018, entitled Two Shadows. And thank you to Jeff P. for pointing this out to me. And you can see this truck has two shadows. Now, in order for a truck to have two shadows, there have to be two sources of light. But the shadows are equally dark, suggesting that the two light sources, which would have to be on either side of the truck, are equally bright. Of course, only artificial light sources are likely to be so closely matched and aligned. But now, if the real sun was behind one of these simulators, wouldn't one of the shadows be darker than the other? The shadow on the opposite side to which the sun is should be darker because the illumination should be a little brighter from that side. However, the two shadows are equally dark, suggesting that the sun is behind neither of them. But if the sun is always aligned and behind the sun simulator, and that is why we never see the real sun, how is that possible? Where is the real sun then? The person filming states he is moving northwest and it is 11:05 a.m. Where is the real sun supposed to be at 11:05 a.m.? The sun moves in the sky through 360 degrees every 24 hours and thus 15 degrees every hour. The sun should be at its highest point at midday and thus about 15 degrees to the east of its highest point at around 11 a.m. In other words, at 75 degrees to the horizontal direction. However, from the size of the shadows, the simulators are only at about 60 degrees to the horizontal. So the real sun could not be behind either one. But why do we not see it then? If the real sun was in the sky, it would produce a third shadow, much shorter than the other two shadows, but still a shadow. And it should point a little toward the north, so it should not be perpendicular to the truck's directional motion as the two shadows are. This is because this is in the US, which is in the northern hemisphere, and thus the sun would appear to be a little to the south. However, there's no third shadow. So this illustrates the directional motion of the truck towards the northwest. The sun simulators would have to be on opposite sides, so one in the northeast and one in the southwest. North is this way, east is this way. Then, so if we were behind the truck, we can see the two shadows, and from the size of the two shadows, it seems that the sun simulators were at around 60 degrees. So these are quite large shadows. So they were not as high in the sky as the real sun. The real sun would be at 75 degrees, so it would be up here at a higher angle up here, closer to the midday position. So the shadow produced by the real sun would be smaller. So we should be able to see 3 shadows, plus the real sun is not behind either one of the sun simulators, because the real sun would have to be higher up in the sky. So there goes that idea that the sun simulator, there's always one sun simulator behind the real sun, and that's why we never see it. So this diagram illustrates where the real sun would be, the size of the shadow. And this is the view from above. So the truck's moving northwest. This would be north, 45 degrees to northwest. The real sun would be shining a little south of east, so somewhat from that direction there. And so this shadow is produced by that sun simulator. And this one is produced by that sun simulator. And then the real sun would produce the shadow, which would be a parallelogram. It would not be perpendicular to the direction of motion like the other 2 shadows. So we should be able to see a 3rd shadow, but there's no 3rd shadow. So figure 5 shows that the sun simulators are not aligned with the real sun, as the real sun would have to be in a completely different position from where the sun simulators were located. If the simulators are aligned with the sun, then the sun cannot be behind the simulator. And if that is the case, why do we not see it in the sky? Remember, if the sun is shining at all, it should be visible in the sky because it is the same size as the moon, and the moon can be seen during daylight. In addition, if the sun is a source of light in the sky, it should produce a shadow, and it clearly is not producing a shadow of the truck on the road. There's no 3rd shadow. No 3rd shadow. 2 perfectly aligned shadows on either side of the truck. There's no 3rd shadow for the real sun. And it should be on this side. Because the sun, it's before midday, so the sun is east of the midday position before midday, right? It's 11:05. So the only possible conclusion is that the real sun is not in the sky, the real sun is not shining. It is impossible for the sun to be shining. In conclusion, the evidence showing that the sun, the real sun, is not shining, that it is no longer in the sky, is overwhelming. The sun is no longer a source of light visible from Earth. The evidence is irrefutable. And this is Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X physicist. Thank you for watching.